my blood doth rise in the roots of an oak. The sap doth run in my veins. Boundless my soul like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain.
Where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands on the wings of time without end, for my sight as deep as the sea, beating my heart sounds the measures of hope that of love's eternity. That of love, that of love, that of love's eternity.
I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
This congregation is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to its life, we affirm our lives within it.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
For me, December has always been a month of rest, of stillness, of darkness, of going within. And even though it's busy with the holidays, I have learned over the years that it's important for me to embrace that natural circadian rhythm of the year. The animals slow down in December. The bears hibernate. The trees release their leaves and go dormant. And yet, so many times we human beings simply ignore all of that. We put on and turn on the artificial lights and push through our busyness. But I have found over the years that pushing through doesn't really work that well. What I have found that works for me this time of the year is to intentionally slow down, intentionally allow myself to get quiet, to go within and rest. And I love Christmas, and I guess parts of me love the part leading up to Christmas with finding the right present and decorating and that, and part of me doesn't love that so much. But what I really love is this week that we're entering into, this week between Christmas and New Year's, because it is that in-between week. It's that week when we get to look back at the past year, what worked, what didn't work, what do we want to release, what are we going to embrace? And we get to look forward to the new year. What do we hope for? What are we wanting to create? How do we want to change? It's that liminal space where we haven't yet embraced the new, but we're pretty much finished with the old. And we just get to sit in the in-between time. And I've talked about that space many times between stimulus and response. In between the stimulus and the response is that still moment, that second before you choose how you're going to respond. That breath in between is what makes all the difference. This is the week that we are entering into. The office will officially be closed, and although Maya and Jimmy will be in and out, I have told them to do what needs to be done in their own time. I'm going to, depending on the roads, be heading to Denver today or tomorrow, and just taking some of this time to rest, relax, go into that in-between time. This is the week where we can take the time to let things go, where I invite us all, whether we still have to work or not, we still have the busyness of our lives, but we can change and allow, even if it's just in our heads, that idea that this week we're going to slow down. That it will really be okay if things don't happen as quickly as they normally do, if the newsletter doesn't get out exactly on time. And it may seem like a silly thing, but it's important if we think about it, because we have to give ourselves time to honor and recognize our internal patterns. We have to occasionally, at least a few times a year, allow ourselves to say schedule and routine are wonderful. And sometimes we get to let our guard down and just go have a snow day or take a mental day off. And that's really okay. That is part of our natural human process. And my invitation for this year and the coming years is for us as human beings collectively to embrace that natural process and let go of having to push through everything so often. So this week, we get to rest in that space between Christmas and New Year's Day, between 2021 and 2022. This time last year, we were in that space between President Trump and President Biden. between life without a vaccine and life with a vaccine, between doing school online and going back to see your friends in person, between letting go of how it's always been and yet not quite knowing how to embrace what might yet be. Today, in a few minutes, we're going to open the time capsule that the kids created for us a few years ago, and we will get to read what our predictions and hopes were for 2021, and then we'll make some predictions and set new intentions for 2022. Last year at this time, we hadn't had the January 6th attack on our Capitol and a frontal assault on democracy itself. I do remember being worried and wondering for the first time in my life if there would be a peaceful transition of power. And as I was thinking about that today, I don't know what the answer to that is, because the transition of power did happen, but was it peaceful? I'm not sure. And even though I was worried and felt like something was not quite right, I don't think I had predicted just how close we really were to losing our democracy. And this year, I feel like, I think we still need to be careful, and we still need to be vigilant, and we still have work to do to keep this country safe. This year, this time last year, we didn't yet totally have the vaccine. We knew it was on the way, and we were cautiously optimistic that there would be a vaccine for COVID, that the virus would go away, that we would be back to normal by this day on 2021. I don't know that we're back to normal yet. I'm not sure what normal is. I don't think many of us would have predicted the resistance to the vaccine, or that critical race theory would become a rally cry for people to storm school board meetings. 2021 has become known as the year of the mass resignations, with many people deciding that their work environments were something they're no longer willing to put up with for what they're being paid. We are experiencing the ramifications of that paradigm shift right now, I think, and I don't think we know what that looks like yet. And so in some ways, it feels kind of like we're back to normal. And in other ways, things don't feel normal at all. And within all that, we're surrounded by many people wanting things to be normal without quite yet knowing what that means. Our healthcare workers are still exhausted and overworked. Our hospitals are at capacity and even more crowded than they were this time last year. And so this pandemic, we're not out of the woods yet, and yet we're open up in a way that we've never been for 2 years. We had a Christmas Eve candlelight service on Friday night. And so it's just this very interesting push-pull of what used to be and where we're going, and we're not quite there yet. I remember last year, I talked about reading something about, really thinking about the caterpillar when the caterpillar goes into the cocoon, and this is my language, it literally turns into a bunch of goo before it emerges as a beautiful butterfly. And what I said this time last year was it felt like we were in that goo. I'm not a scientist, but this year I feel like we're still kind of in that metamorphosis process, but the butterfly, I think, is beginning to take shape. Even though it's not ready to emerge, I'm very optimistic that it is starting to take shape. And so what I want to do today is I want to just open it up for us to have a bit of a conversation. What are our hopes for this last year? What were some things that happened this year that we didn't predict? What are some things that happened this year that maybe we did predict in a good way? Maybe there were some things we predicted that came to fruition in a not so good way, but we were expecting it. And so that's what I want to do. And then I also have the list of what we predicted last year. But what I want to do first is I want to just open it up to us to have a conversation with each other about this past year. What are some things you're going to hold on to? What are some things you're going to let go of? What are some things that you'd like to embrace in 2022? And what are some predictions that you have for this next year? So we'll open it up for a bit of a conversation about those things, and then I'll share what we predicted last year, and then we'll maybe do some formal predictions for this coming year that Angie is nice enough that said she would write them down for us. So I have enabled everybody on Zoom to unmute themselves if they'd like to speak. And Jimmy, are there microphones? Oh, no, the microphones. Maybe Angie, would you be willing to carry the microphone around if people here in the congregation want to say something? And if you're on Zoom and somebody in the congregation is talking, I will make sure I repeat what they say so that we can hear everybody. But would somebody like to start us off with thoughts about this last year? Okay, and Angie, come up here so people can actually see you.
Something I had no idea was going to happen last year was complete career change. And I am so grateful that that happened, because I am now on a path of fulfillment and fun, and doesn't even seem like work. So that was awesome for me.
Oh, apparently I forgot to actually unmute all of you. That's why nobody's talking. Let's try this again. One of the predictions was that I would get better at Zoom, and I think I did, but we still have our weekly snafu. Floyd, go ahead.
Okay, I want to acknowledge yesterday as an important day because of the launch of the James Webb Observatory, which is going out to L2 and is going to sit there probably for eternity. And it's going to create a whole new field of science because it approaches things different than Hubble. I think that's just a step toward, and it happened yesterday on Christmas, into the future, positive into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Floyd. Barbara Beth, did I see that you had unmuted a minute or so ago?
If I did, it was by accident. Thank you.
What does that say?
Laurel, go ahead. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, the last year, like the year before, it was full of so much difference and change. And I know that one of my goals was to become closer with my family, because we have gotten to spend more time together than ever before.
Laurel, I think you accidentally muted yourself again.
Okay. Did you hear any of that?
We heard that you want to spend more time with your family.
Okay, and so one benefit and unexpected change that has come from spending more time together as a family is that we are growing our family and we are expecting a baby next year, which is really exciting. Really, really exciting and super terrifying. It has been a little while since we did that. So, but at this point in time, you know, we're all used to really big changes with unexpected craziness. So it doesn't seem that weird.
And we're all giving you a big finger wave. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? We have some hands going up in the congregation. Oh, Catherine, do you maybe the people that are here, if you just want to come talk in front of the computer screen. I know that's not always as comfortable, but it's easier for everybody to see you.
I would just like to mention that I am so grateful for the last couple of years in that I have learned to be much more introspective. And I've learned that I can listen to my heart and trust it, and to trust my instincts. And that's something that I don't know that I would have been able to do with all the busyness of the former life. So I just want to say that I'm grateful for that, and I want to continue to grow that.
Richard or Jan, do you have something you'd like to say?
It's Jan. This year, I have been thinking about what draws the people in our country apart. And I have basically always been a city kid. The first time I've lived in any place that's anywhere near rural is here. This last month, we went down to Texas to see our kids for Thanksgiving. On the way, we stopped at a little city called Caw City, Oklahoma. And that is where my father was born. And we met some of the people there. And a town of about 400. And we had an opportunity to get to know a couple in particular. And further on in that trip, we met some of our son Benjamin's best friends, also people who are rural, grew up on a ranch. And I made the effort to get an idea of what is the worldview that comes out of a small community. If I don't understand rural and some of the things that are coming from there, why not? And so I had a wonderful experience with these two families. And so in the future, I want to pursue that more so that I have a greater understanding maybe of some of the different ways in which we approach our world in hopes of making it a better one.
Thank you, Jan. Anybody else? I know there were a few. It looks like Steve is coming up to talk to us.
You know, sometimes I find it disheartening to see people putting their trust or belief in misinformed people on the radio and distrusting the experts. It's like, if you're an expert, then I'm really not going to believe what you have to say because you have a certain point of view. And you hear all this noise, like the vaccine's a classic example. People won't listen to the experts from the Center for Disease Control. They'll listen to some guy on the radio. But that in spite of all this noise and stuff that's going on, there's people still trying to make it a better world. Just like Floyd said about the space of the satellite going into the new, and people working in pharmaceuticals and all kinds of science. there's still thousands and thousands of people who are experts, who are trying to make a better world in spite of all the noise.
I think there's always hope.
Oh, Richard.
You guys, all right, we have.
Wendy, one comment.
Go ahead, Richard.
This is at the risk of having too many Highlands on the horn here. I want us to remember an event early this year, January 6th. But I want to remember some of the weeks before then, and in particular, a small group of us from at least 3 different churches, inspired by Elizabeth and any number of others among us, to hold on to the idea of our democratic republic in the face of some pressures that began building in October last year, culminating ultimately in something we didn't suspect would happen but feared, which was January 6th. It indeed was very close call. But what I want to highlight here is the fact that a group of us came together and thought and worked very hard to see through all of the debris in the area, all of the fear, and to try to chart a nonpartisan approach to what was happening to the Grand Valley and the country at large. And I think intuitively, our group sought to see the good in our neighbors in the middle of the turmoil, in the middle of the confusion, and in the middle of the fear. I think we all learned a lot about each other in that effort, learned something about our community, certainly learned something about vigilance. And I just want to celebrate that moment because I grew and I found comfort in the ideas and the actions of my fellow neighbors. We're going to need each other even more in the future, I think, but we can do these things together and we can continue improving not just the country, but our Grand Valley as well. So I want to take a moment to remember that time.
Thank you, Richard.
That was beautifully said. I'm a fire captain here in town, and as you can imagine, that sometimes makes for some challenging conversations. And this year, I think with Sonia going to school and me trying to be a good dad and lead and show, we've tried to form more relationships and really find areas of commonality where we can grow from with my crew. It's been challenging. We've never worn our politics on our face and, you know, really showed which group we belong to until now, but we try to find the points where we're all one group, and we can start from there and grow and challenge each other to be better tomorrow. Anything? Okay.
And I'm glad you found us. So what I want to do now is I am going to just read what we wrote last year for our 2021 time capsule, and then we'll have a few minutes to make some 2022 predictions. So the 2021 time capsule, Cheryl Conrad said, with some hiccups, we will get a widespread COVID inoculation and we will reach some form of normalcy. I predict people will let their guards down a bit, but we'll all be in a better place in 6 months. You think that kind of came true? Yes, no, normal. We have the vaccine. So, okay, Monty's shaking his head. So we'll kind of do that. Yeah. Okay. Kayla, I predict that making apologies will matter and the one that will matter will come from Trump. That didn't happen. All right, Sue said she was letting us know that there is a website for the health department and that we can get notified when we can get the vaccine. And at that point in time, this time last year, it was only for people 70 years and older. And now it's open for everybody, all the way down to the little ones. So that happened. Let's see. Andrea predicted, I predict that we will all be together, holding hands, singing ourselves out together this time next year. So we're not holding hands yet, but we still sing ourselves out, and we've created a new normal. Though hand holding probably won't be back for a little while. All right, Peg said, I predict that later in the year, people will be able to get together with family. Why do I keep crying? This is silly. And travel safely, and I am looking forward. Sorry, Peg, there's no reason for me to be crying right now. Looking forward to being in New York State in maybe August. And Peg, you went, didn't you? And Alyssa is here with her right now, with her and Lance right now. So the traveling is starting to happen a little bit. Kayla predicted that my husband and I will go to Turkey next summer to visit with our new in-laws who live in Turkey. COVID vaccinations will be the key. Kayla and Janver, are you online today? Do we know if that happened? I don't see them. I don't know. Does anybody know if they made it to Turkey? I don't think they did. All right. Sherry said it's really dangerous to try to predict a darn thing because everything is cray-cray. I agree with that, Sherry. Betsy said, I'd like to ask that we are all granted the humility and grace to continue safe practices to get us through this. And I think we have all been doing that. Piera said, I hope we learn to accept that we are all human and we should love our world. I think I'm going to give that one a thumbs up. Even though we have our ups and downs, I think that was wonderful, beautiful advice. And Jeannie said, I predict hope that UUCGV will create a hybrid Zoom service so I can still attend from afar. So we have a thumbs up for that one. And now I invite us just to take a few minutes to make some 2022 predictions, and Angie is nice enough to write these down for us. So are there any predictions we want to make for 2022? Bruce is raising his hand back there. So Bruce, talk loud, and then I'll repeat what Bruce says.
My 2022 Subaru will go safe and sound to this congregation.
Aw, he said his 2020, what year?
2022.
His 2022 Subaru will go safe and sound to this congregation. Thank you, Bruce. That's beautiful. All right, we need some more predictions or we're not going to have a very fun time capsule next year. Okay, Angie's making a prediction, and then Laurel.
I predict I will only have one job next year.
Angie predicts that she will only have one job next year. Laurel, go ahead.
I'm going to have one of the most beautiful babies in the world, healthy and happy, and we are all going to continue to enjoy our newfound closeness with our families and time in our homes, because I don't think we're going to let go of all that, no matter how healthy and safe the world gets, because it's been nice.
So then on top of that, I predict that maybe we'll have a real live baby Jesus next year in our nativity scene.
Sounds good.
All right, Peg.
I predict that we will have hired a new RE
director. Peg is predicting that we will have hired a new director of religious education. I give that 2 thumbs up. Anything else?
I think we should tag on there.
Oh, Barbara Beth, go ahead.
I am joyfully anticipating more beautiful music from the choir.
More beautiful music from the choir. Everybody's predictions are so hopeful. Isn't that good? It's optimistic predictions, because they weren't all optimistic last year. Steve, what were you going to say? Okay, Steve is going to not be optimistic for us now.
I'm afraid there's going to be another variation of the COVID virus.
Steve is predicting more variations and mutations of COVID. All right, so I will let Monty and Elizabeth be our last predictions, because we don't want to end on Steve's.
Laurel had one too.
I have sort of a goofy one, which, you know, sort of fits me anyway, but it's 2022 and 22, you know, I don't really believe in numerology, but yet, you know, there's a part of me that kind of is a little superstitious, even though I don't like to admit it, but 22 has always been my number. It's the number I wore when I was young, when I played football, and you know, I had this person that was a friend that did a numerology thing on me, and it came out with 22, and so I'm predicting there's going to be some really wonderful surprises coming in 2022 that we don't expect, that are going to really bring some joy and more healing to our world.
Oh, and
22.
Yay. All right. I think that's a beautiful way to end our predictions, with surprises of joy. And so with that, let us close out with one of my favorite hymns. No, it's not a hymn. One of my favorite songs, Something Told the Wild Geese.
Something told the wild geese it was time to go, for the fields lay golden. Something whispered snow, leaves were green and stirring, berries clustered close, underneath warm feathers. Something cautioned frost. All the sagging orchards seemed for them a spice, but each one was different, that remembered eyes. Something told the wild geese it was time to fly. Summer sun was on their wings. Winter in their cry.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Go your way in peace, wander as you may. Blessed is the path you take, may love guide you on your